the incomparable Neal Coolong.
As always, it is excellent to be here. It's nice to not have a game in 2 days to go over, but seems the Steelers might need more time than what they have to get ready for this one.
My goodness. Let's start with this, Neal. 24 minutes of offensive possession in the game. The Cleveland Browns played 24 consecutive minutes of straight man coverage. What does that tell you about the receivers?
That they're probably upset. Choosing my words carefully. I think there are some understandable frustrations that would go on, and let's just put this out there now. If you were to watch the height of Patrick Mahomes, the best of Josh Allen, any point of Tom Brady, even in their best games, you're going to find plays where other receivers were open.
Yes.
Okay, it's not as simple as that, but it honestly feels like Mitch Trubisky is not physically able to see further than 10 yards down the field. There are schematic issues because for a third game in a row now, and I said this last week, you're looking at a complete offensive ineptitude in the second half. That's not a coincidence. That's a defense that sees the only three things that the quarterback is going to do when throwing the ball, and they're defending it without fear of consequence. He doesn't throw the ball deeper down the field. When he does, it's not usually to a receiver who's noticeably open. Not that option is always available, but it's like he's being told play to play exactly where to go with the ball, and he's not deviating from that. And it seems like opposing defenses are aware of it, and they are doing whatever without fear of retribution. They can just sit on the outlet because they're going to blitz. Trubisky is going to see the blitz and not look at anything else. This is the only place he's going to go to the ball. So they're baiting him into these things, and he's falling into it as simply as, snapping the ball. So you're not going to generate much offense, and this is why they have multiple 3-and-outs every fourth quarter. Every team is knowing exactly what they're doing. Now, as far as the receivers are concerned, they typically, there's one of them that's getting targeted plenty, and there are a couple others that aren't getting targeted at all.
Right.
A large part of that is because they're not running any plays. They don't have any possession. So it's harder to spread the ball around when for 3 games in a row, your opponent is snapping the ball at least 25% more than you are. You don't have the opportunities. That isn't the problem, though. I mean, it really kind of becomes a chicken versus the egg thing. Are they not having the possession because they're not doing anything else, or is the lack of production due to the fact that they're not able to get ahead early and continue and extend drives? I thought that Mitch Trubisky played okay in the first half
of
the Cleveland game.
I agree.
Now you can't really scream about it. It wasn't outstanding, but it wasn't bad. Right. He took a 14-13 lead into the locker room.
That's right.
You're not upset with that. But then he didn't do anything else for the rest of the game. And you can understand where the frustration will be coming from. And this is really what this is about. I think it's that the pressure is mounting, and this is a very good opportunity to have a get-right game by Mitch Trubisky, by Najee Harris, and the Steelers offense. They really need to be more efficient and to run more plays in this game to really open up everything else, to show opponents that they're capable of doing something else. Right now, it just seems like the easiest thing in the world to prepare to play this offense. They've barely put anything down on film because they don't have the ball. They do the same 2 things on third downs, and they don't have very much success moving the chains. They're completing passes to the same players over and over. It's just not hard to get ready to defend the Steelers offense. And that's noticeable in the second half of all 3 games.
Not saying it's anybody's fault when it comes to like Trubisky. Like I said, I thought he had a good, not awesome and incredible, he had a good first half. Really, anybody objectively can see that. But is there a point where the leash does get short and, hey, look, it can't hurt to put Kenny Pickett in?
I think we're at the point where it can't hurt to put Kenny Pickett in. Whether they'll do that or not is probably a matter of sticking to an original plan that they had. I'll say this, whatever publicly they're going to say about it, objectively viewing it, it doesn't seem to add up, and they're going to support who's in there because my assumption here is that they are coaching Trubisky to do exactly what he's doing. Right. This is the way that they feel it is the best way for them to play the game week in and week out. You have issues with your offensive line, though give them credit. They've done a reasonable job. They've gotten better. Their run blocking has improved. The short game kind of takes out the limitations of their pass protection, but they're playing within that structure. To some degree, I think Mitch is really just kind of a studio quarterback. He's the guy brought in, play this and only this, and don't do anything else. That's what you're paid to do. This is what you need to do. It's not yielding results in any way. And if they feel that the quarterback is doing it logically, you're going to think that, well, the quarterback is doing exactly what you're telling him to do. But it's the position that affects the score of the game the most. And I certainly don't need to tell Mike Tomlin or Matt Canada that. You need explosive plays in this league now. You need them. You can't just rely on 3.5 yards in a cloud of dust and play defense to win games. They're going to have to get more out of their quarterback if they want to win. If that's not what they're looking to do, I guess not really much of a point in changing quarterbacks anyway. But just looking at the management side of it, Pickett's going to be your starter next year. If you're not winning games, at some point it would stand to reason that you're going to put him in. I don't know exactly when that's going to be. I don't know if there is ever a perfect non-injury related time for that, but I would think it's coming soon. Because like I said, the Jets are a very volatile team. You're not sure what you're getting with them week in and week out. Beyond that, though, it's reasonable to think the Steelers aren't going to win a game for a while. I mean, you're looking at maybe you're not sure what you're getting out of Tampa Bay just yet, but you're at Buffalo. Then you're at home against Tampa Bay, and then you got road games against the Dolphins and the Eagles, which are two teams you absolutely don't want to play right now. At the Dolphins in prime time. I bet on 0-4 in that string right now. That's a hard row to hoe, and I don't really know how they're going to overcome that. If you get your second win of the year against the Jets and then take a 4-game losing streak after that, I'm not sure where you're going, but you've got to bye after the Eagles game. Your season is pretty much over if they lose Sunday and then the 4 after that. If they're on a 7-game losing streak, the season's over. At that point, you may as well put Pickett in. So if it's not before that, I'm not sure why to hold out unless it's to protect him. And if that's the case, I don't know what you're doing with everything else then. You're just saving it all for next year when you're going to probably overhaul your coaching staff. I don't see the benefit top to bottom in how they would approach it. I would prefer just to get Pickett in, but again, if we are to believe that they're pleased with what Trubisky is doing, this is what they want him to do, and the results are not they're not good. I don't think anybody can say that they are.
Part of the mirage with the Steelers last year versus the reality, the mirage being that T.J. Watt is so effective getting sacks, and Cameron Hayward had a really good year. But the bottom line is the Steelers' defensive front spent a lot of time last year getting the front seven getting pushed around, right? Watt sacks aside and some of the things Hayward did, for the most part last year, their front seven got pushed around. Thursday night, what did the Cleveland Browns do? Without Watt, they really pushed them around to the tune of 36 minutes. Neal, how worried are they that that's something that you can't correct?
They got flat out dominated up front by a very good offensive line that played an excellent game.
But they got pushed around last year, and the fans won't admit it because Watt makes it seem like, whoa, hey, that front's great, and Hayward had some really good moments. The other 5 guys didn't. I mean, they really they got pushed around last year, and they got pushed around again Thursday night.
Yeah, I agree completely, and they absolutely did. And I don't think it's a coincidence either that they also got pushed around on a Thursday night road game last year when the Vikings were set to break all kinds of NFL records against them. What's the commonality in all this? I think it's interesting because everyone was saying up and down that the return of Tyson Alualu fixes a lot of that. Well, he just got benched.
Yep.
I said that this offseason. I'm like, you don't get better at playing football by not playing football.
I've said that a million times.
Speaking as somebody who is relatively close to Alualu in age, I can assure you, you take time off, it's not as simple as just hopping back on the field. There's a lot that you have to do. And all due respect to him. He was a phenomenal player in his career. I have really enjoyed watching him play. It is hard physically to come back. And it's not about the injury. It's about the time off. Your body doesn't catch up as quickly anymore. And it's obvious after 3 weeks that he can't hang. So he's not going to. Montravius Adams is going to be their starter now. And the other players need to get a lot better as well. It can't just be Cam Hayward. In the situation that they're in now, they had the ultimate bailout plan in T.J. Watt last year. Look at the Seattle game. Watt made a play, I think, in the first drive of that game, and then was largely, not really a factor throughout Seattle's comeback to the point where they tie the game up. They get the ball in overtime, and then Watt takes over again, and it's over. When you don't have that difference maker on the field, you really the difference between last year and this year, they're getting pushed around either way.
Right.
Watt, though, can flip the game. They don't have anybody that's really showing that they're capable of doing that. They asked for a Herculean effort out of Cam Hayward last year. If Hayward is still on the team next year, they might want to think about limiting him, coming up with a different game plan for a Thursday night game because he's not doing well on these Thursday night games.
No,
and their defense was flat against a good team. Give them credit for doing what they do, but they're facing a lot of good teams here coming up. And if we're in week 3 and they look exhausted already, to be fair, they are because the offense can't hold on to the ball. They shouldn't be running. They're on pace. I saw this earlier. They're on pace. The defense is on pace to be on the field for 1,300 snaps. That's like 30% higher than average. Yeah. They're not going to last. They're not going to make it. So the offense has a part of this as well. But the defense wore down as they, as you think that they would have with as many snaps as they've played. Nobody is deep enough to take on that kind of workload. And we're seeing it already become a problem. And how talented they were up front. We saw a lot of good things out of them in week 1. They played 5 quarters, play one game, and then a short week game. Maybe the extra rest here will help. Maybe we'll see them a bit more refreshed. But if they're not, it's going to be a really long season on both sides of the ball.
Micah Fitzpatrick is in concussion protocol. If he does not get out of it before game time, what does that do to the Steeler defense?
A lot of very bad things.
Yes.
He's the dynamic playmaker that's on the field. He takes away the back third of the entire offensive approach. It shortens their ability. Not just makes it harder to complete deeper stuff, but you're threatening a long punt on an early down when he's back there. To not have him in there, along with Watt not being in there, I don't know what you're planning on doing, but you're going to be in trouble. He is an excellent playmaker. He's the best deep safety in the NFL. They've used him in that way, and he's provided results consistently. To not have him, I think, creates a complete void of playmaking ability, and I don't know how you're able to scheme a way around that. The best way to do it would be to possess the ball and not put your defense into too many situations because they're going to have to force punts, not take the ball away, or sack the quarterback without the two guys they have that are best at doing that. It's tough. It's tough.
No question. They're playing the Jets. I know the Jets had that miracle at the end against Cleveland. Are they any better than in recent years?
I like to think what they have. I don't even know if we've really seen them this year.
I mean, let's be honest about it here. You can't keep drafting that high and be worse.
You'd think so, right? And that's like at some point they're going to put this together. I don't know about their quarterback. I don't know how much I liked the quarterback. You know, he's got a nice level of arm talent for sure. And clearly I'm not the person to be making these decisions, because I was the guy saying that if Robert Saleh is going over to the Jets with a team like that, you want to get the quarterback who's closest to his ceiling right now, and not the one that's a project over several years. Should have taken Justin Fields. Well, Justin Fields is one of the few quarterbacks who at this point has played worse than Mitch Trubisky has. So maybe that isn't going to work out. But we don't know what we have with Zach Wilson. They're going to struggle with that. Offensively, I don't really know what their identity is, but it was good for them, I think, to have a guy like Joe Flacco for 3 weeks, because Flacco is so up and down. And Flacco, he's not, if they're saying anything about that guy, the one thing that he has going for him is he has absolutely no fear. He doesn't care. He's going to get the ball down the field. The guy has an unbelievable amount of confidence in his arm strength, and he should. But he's able to hit on those big plays. You're worried about that. It's not that Zach Wilson doesn't have that ability. It's that he doesn't seem to process the game fast enough to see where those things are coming from. So you really have to scheme that up. He's not just making those plays on his own accord. Can he be consistent with that? I don't know. We haven't seen Zach Wilson since he got hurt back in the preseason. We don't know who he's going to be. But they've put talent on the field. There's a lot of talent on their defense. They should be able to make a solid effort in most of their games because of the athleticism and the talent they have defensively. And we're seeing that from them. I don't know how quickly it's all coming together. I don't know how strong they're going to be overall in what looks like now a pretty tough division over there. I don't know if they're any better than 6 wins, which is very typical for them. So in a roundabout way, I don't know if they've improved at all. It seems like they have more ways to beat you now than they have before. It's a matter of them putting it together.
6 wins by the Jets normally leads to a parade. Everybody has their own standards.
I don't know how there even are Jets fans. I mean, that's not an easy team to root for year in and year out. And they put stuff together. I think Robert Saleh is a good coach.
I do too. I think Robert Saleh is a very good coach.
They've put guys there to kind of help out, but you need that thing to bring it all together. In my opinion, that's usually your quarterback, and I'm not sure if that's the right quarterback. I didn't know if that's the guy that they should have taken. I see why they took him, for sure. We saw glimpses of it, but his floor is pretty low, too. And I don't think they're strong enough where they sit today they're going to need more than to rely on their very young, very inexperienced quarterback in order to win games.
As I've said before, hope is not a strategy. All right. That seems to be.
We end with that too many times.
Too many times, but I also think it is the Jets' motto.
Yep.
That and the Arizona Coyotes and the Sacramento Kings.
I forgot about the Sacramento Kings. They blew up the arena. I thought the team folded or something. I guess not.
Well, why do you think Ballmer owns the Clippers?
I'd rather own the Clippers.
Steve Ballmer tried to buy the Kings and moved them to Sacramento. I mean, moved them to Seattle. He tried to move them to Seattle. And then Kevin Johnson, the former NBA point guard with the Suns, is the mayor of Sacramento. And he got Globe One Arena built, which is a palace. So the Kings stayed, so Ballmer bought the Clippers for $2 billion.
Yep.
Cash.
Yep. That sounds like what Red McCombs did with the Vikings back in the day.
Yes.
He bought the team with the idea solely of, I can build a new arena and or move them. He was a Texan, and there was talk of them moving to San Antonio.
Yep.
But he never got either of those things to work, so he sold them. Still made a mint, but it was like he never owned the team for the sake of owning the team. He was really just kind of a Stan Cranky real estate tycoon type that's looking to profit in the billions off relocating teams from one place to another and then building basically a gigantic football theme park for them somewhere.
Right, and that's what Kroenke did. Kroenke's doing that right now at SoFi. They're turning it into, like, I guess NFL Network's there, NFL.com's there. They're turning it into a campus. And then he also owns the Colorado Avalanche, so he has a Stanley Cup. They had to explain to him what a puck was, right? And then he owns the Nuggets, All right, they own the Colorado Rapids of MLS. His wife is Ann Walton. Ann Walton's brother just bought the Broncos.
Yeah,
with all that Walmart money, right? And it's a competition in the family as to who has more money,
exactly.
Stan or Ann. I mean, it's an interesting life, Neal. Those kind of problems we don't have.
If they're as competitive as my family is over Thanksgiving Day related games and activities, I'd feel vastly inferior anyway. But it's like the level of money that flows between people at that it's I can't even get my head around it. I mean, it's just nuts. And for them, that's just, regular day, regular business type stuff.
Oh, I mean, to them, the competition is who's involved with more banks. I'm involved with 22. Oh, I've got 28. All right. Interesting problem to have. Neal, always a pleasure. You can, once again, take this to the bank.
Definitely. Good stuff. Thanks.